Jason Statham invited his ex-girlfriend to his wedding to see her suffer, but she showed up with his triplets. Jason Statham stood in his sprawling penthouse, staring at the invitation list spread across the marble countertop. The wedding to Victoria Hale, a dazzling actress and socialite, was set to be the event of the season. Jason, now a self-made millionaire, had transformed himself from a scrappy mechanic into one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the tech industry. His journey was a testament to ambition and resilience, and this wedding was the ultimate showcase of his achievements. But as Jason reviewed the names on the guest list, his mind wandered to a chapter he rarely revisited: Mia Reynolds. Mia, his ex-girlfriend, had been his grounding force during his rise to success. She'd supported him through the lean years, her encouragement and kindness keeping him afloat when he doubted himself. Yet, as his dreams became his sole focus, their relationship crumbled under the weight of his ambition. He told himself that inviting Mia was a gesture of closure, a way to remind her of how far he'd come. But deep down, he couldn't shake the lingering curiosity. Did she still think about him? Did she regret letting him go? Jason added her name to the list with a sharp flourish, convincing himself it was just another calculated move in his carefully curated life. Mia Reynolds sat at the kitchen table in her modest home, surrounded by the joyful chaos of her 3 children, Liam, Sophia, and Noah. At 5 years old, the triplets were a whirlwind of energy, laughter, and questions. Mia had built a life for them through grit and sacrifice, juggling multiple jobs and leaning on her art for both income and solace. She had long made peace with raising her children alone, choosing to focus on their happiness instead of the man who had walked away before he even knew they existed. When the gilded envelope arrived, Mia's first reaction was confusion. Who would send her something so extravagant? She opened it slowly, her hands trembling as she read the words, "Jason Statham and Victoria Hale cordially invite you." Her heart sank. Jason, after all these years. Why now? She hadn't seen him since the day they parted. His sharp words about her lack of understanding, for his ambition still stinging in her memory. She had kept the triplets a secret, telling herself that Jason had made his choice clear, his career above all else. But why would he invite her? Did he want to flaunt his success? Rub it in her face? Or was there something more? Her emotions swirled. Shock, anger, and a faint flicker of curiosity she couldn't ignore. That night, after tucking the triplets into bed, Mia sat by the window, staring at the invitation in her hands. The moonlight illuminated the golden lettering, as if mocking her indecision. Memories of Jason, his ambition, his charm, his love, played in her mind like an old film reel. She had moved on, or so she thought. But this invitation had reopened wounds she didn't know still lingered. Then she looked at the small faces of her children as they slept peacefully. They deserved to know their father, even if he had never given them a chance. And Jason, he deserved to face the truth, whether he was ready for it or not. Her decision was made. She would go, not for revenge or to make a scene, but for her children. It was time to stop shielding them from the past and give them the chance to meet the man who had unknowingly shaped their lives. With a deep breath, Mia placed the invitation on the table, determination hardening in her chest. She didn't know how Jason would react, but one thing was certain. This wedding would change everything. Jason stood in the heart of the grand estate, overseeing the final touches for what was set to be the wedding of the year. The sprawling gardens were decorated with imported orchids, cascading fairy lights, and a string quartet playing softly in the background. Inside, a team of planners meticulously arranged gold-edged place settings and crystal glassware under the glittering chandeliers of the banquet hall. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a statement. Jason's rise from humble beginnings to self-made millionaire was woven into every detail of the day. He had spent months planning each moment, ensuring that every guest would leave with a story of opulence to tell. For Jason, this was more than a union with Victoria Hale, his glamorous fiancée. It was his declaration to the world that he had arrived. As he adjusted his tie in the mirror, Jason felt a surge of satisfaction. Everything was perfect, almost. Despite his outward confidence, Jason's thoughts drifted to the past as he reviewed the guest list for the final time. Mia Reynolds. Her name was there, etched neatly among the other invitees. The moment he'd added it, he'd convinced himself it was a power move, a way to solidify the narrative he'd crafted. Jason Statham, the man who didn't need anyone, especially not the woman who couldn't keep up with his ambition. But as the day drew closer, doubts began to creep in. Was it really just about proving himself? Or was there more to it? He remembered the way Mia used to look at him, as though he were the only person in the world. Her laugh, her unwavering belief in his dreams. And then he remembered the fights, the accusations that he'd stopped caring, her frustration with his single-minded focus on work. He'd buried those memories under layers of success and wealth, but the cracks were still there. Jason clenched his jaw, shaking off the thoughts. He wasn't that man anymore. This wedding was about his future, not his past. Whatever lingering feelings he might have had for Mia were irrelevant. She had moved on just as he had, or so he told himself. In the bridal suite, Victoria Hale was a vision of elegance. Dressed in a custom-made gown adorned with delicate lace and pearls, she exuded the effortless glamour that had made her a darling of the tabloids. Surrounded by her bridal party, she sipped champagne and laughed, her excitement palpable. Victoria loved the idea of marrying Jason, not just because of his success, but because of the power couple they would become. Together, they represented wealth, influence, and perfection. The wedding was everything she had ever dreamed of, a flawless spectacle that would cement her place as Mrs. Jason Statham. As guests began arriving, Victoria remained blissfully unaware of the brewing storm. She had no idea about Jason's invitation to Mia, nor the deeper motivations behind it. To her, today was about celebrating their love and basking in the envy of the world. Meanwhile, outside the estate gates, a modest car approached. Inside, Mia Reynolds sat behind the wheel, her triplets in the back seat. She took a deep breath, steadying herself for what lay ahead. The calm, perfect world Jason and Victoria had built was about to collide with a truth neither of them saw coming. The estate gates loomed large as Mia drove up the winding driveway, her heart pounding with a mix of nerves and determination. In the back seat, Liam, Sophia, and Noah were dressed in matching outfits, their bright eyes filled with curiosity about the big party their mother had promised. The children, unaware of the emotional stakes, chattered excitedly as Mia parked the car and took a deep breath. When she stepped out, holding each child's hand, heads turned immediately. The soft murmur of the crowd quieted as guests noticed her and the three children walking beside her. The triplets were striking, their features impossible to ignore. Bright eyes, sharp jawlines, and an unmistakable air of familiarity. Whispers rippled through the crowd like a current, speculation spreading in hushed tones. "Who is she?" one guest murmured. "And those kids? They look just like..." Another trailed off, their eyes darting to the groom's direction. Mia walked with quiet confidence, her simple but elegant dress reflecting the resilience she had built over the years. The triplets held her hands tightly, their awe at the grand estate a stark contrast to the tension building in the air. As she entered the main hall, the orchestra faltered for a moment, a single violinist missing their cue as all eyes turned toward her. Jason was greeting guests near the main entrance when he saw her. At first, he thought his mind was playing tricks on him. But as Mia stepped closer, flanked by three identical children, his breath caught in his throat. His carefully composed demeanor cracked as the reality hit him with the force of a freight train. He couldn't look away. The triplets, Liam, Sophia, and Noah were the very image of him. Their eyes, their smiles, even the way they carried themselves were undeniable reflections of his own. A rush of memories flooded his mind. Late-night arguments, the love they once shared, and the abrupt end of their relationship. Jason's chest tightened as he struggled to process what he was seeing. How could she have kept this from him? Why was she here now on this day of all days? The room seemed to close in on him. Conversations around him blurred into a dull hum as he locked eyes with Mia. For the first time in years, Jason Statham, the confident, self-made millionaire, was completely and utterly lost. From across the room, Victoria's laughter faded as she noticed Jason's expression. She followed his gaze, her smile faltering as her eyes landed on Mia and the children. A flicker of confusion crossed her face, followed quickly by suspicion. The whispers from the guests didn't escape her notice, and the growing tension in the room was impossible to ignore. Victoria stepped away from her bridal party, her perfectly poised exterior beginning to crack. She made her way toward Jason, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Her voice was low but firm when she reached him. "Jason, what's going on? Who is she? And those kids?" Victoria trailed off, her eyes narrowing as she glanced between him and Mia. Jason struggled to find words, his usual quick wit abandoning him. I didn't know she would come," he stammered, his voice unsteady. "This isn't what it looks like." But Victoria wasn't convinced. Her gaze lingered on the triplets, and a sickening realization began to take shape in her mind. The crowd, sensing the escalating drama, pretended to mingle while stealing glances at the unfolding scene. Victoria's carefully constructed world was beginning to wobble, and for the first time, she wondered if she truly knew the man she was about to marry. The tension in the room was palpable as Jason, Mia, and Victoria left the main hall, retreating to a side chamber away from the prying eyes of their guests. The opulent room, adorned with crystal chandeliers and velvet drapes, felt suffocating as emotions began to simmer. Jason stood by the door, his jaw tight, avoiding eye contact with either woman. Victoria, her elegant features contorted with suspicion, broke the silence first. "Jason, what's going on? Who is she? And why does everyone think those kids are yours?" Mia stepped forward, her voice steady despite the storm brewing around her. "Because they are Victoria. Liam, Sophia, and Noah are Jason's children." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Victoria's eyes widened in shock, her perfectly composed demeanor shattering. Jason's face was a mix of disbelief and guilt, his hands gripping the back of a chair for support. "Mia, what are you saying?" Jason finally managed, his voice low and strained. He looked at her, then at the door, as if he could escape the truth she had just revealed. "I'm saying," Mia replied firmly, "that those 3 children out there are yours. I tried to raise them on my own because I thought that was what you wanted. But they deserve to know their father, and you deserve to know them." Jason's mind raced as he processed Mia's words. He felt as though the room were closing in on him, the walls pressing tighter with each passing second. "Why?" he asked finally, his voice tinged with anger and confusion. "Why didn't you tell me?" Mia folded her arms, meeting his gaze. "You made your priorities clear, Jason. The night we broke up, you told me there was no room in your life for anything but your career. I found out I was pregnant after you were gone. By then, I thought it was better this way, better for you and for them." Jason's frustration boiled over. "You decided for me? Do you have any idea what you've taken away from me?" He ran a hand through his hair, pacing the room. "I've missed years. Years I can never get back." Mia's expression softened, but her resolve didn't waver. "You're right, Jason. You did miss those years. But you left me no choice. You made it clear you didn't want anyone or anything holding you back." The truth of her words struck Jason like a blow. He remembered the arguments, the late nights when he'd dismissed her concerns about their relationship. He had convinced himself that success would fill the void, but standing here now, he realized how wrong he had been. Victoria, who had been silent, finally found her voice. "So this is why you invited her?" she hissed, turning to Jason with fire in her eyes. "You wanted to rub your success in her face, and now it's backfired? You knew this might happen, didn't you?" Jason shook his head, panic flashing across his face. "No, Victoria. I had no idea. I didn't even know about the kids." "That's the problem, Jason," Victoria snapped, her voice rising. "You didn't know, but you didn't care to find out either. You've been so busy building this perfect life, and now it's all falling apart because of secrets you didn't even bother to uncover." Victoria's words cut deep, her anger fueled by humiliation. She had envisioned this day as the pinnacle of her relationship with Jason, a testament to their partnership and success. Instead, it had become a spectacle of scandal. "You've made me look like a fool," she continued, her voice trembling. "I trusted you, and now, I don't even know who you are." Jason opened his mouth to respond, but Victoria raised her hand to silence him. "No, I need time to think. I can't do this right now." With that, she turned on her heel and left the room, slamming the door behind her. Jason stood frozen, the weight of the situation crashing down on him. He looked at Mia, who watched him with a mix of sadness and resolve. "You can hate me all you want, Jason," she said quietly, "but this isn't about us anymore. It's about Liam, Sophia, and Noah. They deserve to know their father, and you deserve the chance to be part of their lives, if you're willing to step up." Mia's words were a challenge, and Jason knew it. He had spent his life chasing success, but for the first time, he was being forced to confront the consequences of his choices. Whether he could rise to the occasion, he didn't yet know. The lavish wedding hall, once alive with elegant chatter and soft music, had descended into chaos. Whispers turned into murmurs, and murmurs into gasps as the news spread. The groom had triplets he had never acknowledged. The shocking revelation rippled through the crowd like wildfire, with guests exchanging wide-eyed glances and hushed commentary. Victoria Hale, in her designer gown and perfectly coiffed hair, stormed back into the hall, her fury palpable. Ignoring the curious stares, she made a beeline for her parents, gesturing sharply for them to leave with her. "This is over," she said, her voice loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. "I will not be humiliated like this." Jason emerged moments later, his usually composed face etched with tension. He scanned the room for Victoria but found himself intercepted by guests attempting to comfort or pry into his situation. He brushed past them, his mind clouded with guilt and embarrassment. He wanted to fix everything, but he didn't even know where to start. The orchestra, unsure whether to continue playing, quietly stopped, leaving the hall in an uncomfortable silence. The grandeur Jason had worked so hard to create was now overshadowed by scandal. Guests began to leave in groups, their parting glances loaded with judgment. Jason stood in the middle of the hall, surrounded by the remnants of his meticulously planned day. His perfect world had crumbled, and there was no undoing the damage. Later that evening, Jason sat alone in the groom's lounge, his head in his hands. The room was eerily quiet, the sounds of the unraveling wedding distant now. He replayed Mia's words in his mind. "They deserve to know their father, and you deserve the chance to be part of their lives." For years, Jason had told himself that his success would define his legacy. But now, as he thought about Liam, Sophia, and Noah, his children, he realized how hollow that legacy felt. He had missed their first steps, their first words, and countless moments that could never be reclaimed. The weight of what he had lost pressed down on him. But fear gnawed at him. Could he be the father they needed? Did he even deserve the chance after so many years of absence? He had no idea how to parent, let alone make up for lost time. And yet, the thought of walking away, of repeating the same mistake, was unbearable. Jason took a deep breath. He had made mistakes, but he had a choice now. He could let his pride dictate his actions, or he could try to rebuild what he had lost. His children deserved better, and for the first time, Jason resolved to put them first. Meanwhile, Mia sat in the garden outside the estate, the triplets playing nearby. She watched them chase fireflies under the glow of the garden lights, their laughter a bittersweet balm to the chaos of the day. Despite everything, she felt a sense of peace. She had done what she came to do. She had brought the truth to light. But as she thought about Jason, doubts crept in. Could he truly step up and be the father her children deserved? Could she trust him to follow through? Or would he fall back into his old patterns of ambition and neglect? Mia's resolve hardened. If Jason wanted a role in their lives, he would have to prove it. Words weren't enough. She needed to see actions. He would need to earn their trust one step at a time. When Jason finally found her, his expression was a mixture of guilt and determination. He stood silently for a moment, watching the triplets, their innocent laughter tugging at his heart. Then he turned to Mia, I don't know where to start, he admitted, his voice raw. But I want to try. I want to be their father. If you'll let me. Mia looked at him, her gaze steady. Being their father isn't just about wanting it, Jason. It's about showing up every day. It's about proving you're in this for them, not for your own guilt or pride. Jason nodded, understanding the challenge she was laying before him. I'll show you. I'll show them. I won't let them down. Mia searched his face, looking for signs of the man she had once loved. For the first time in years, she saw a glimmer of humility and sincerity. We'll see, she said softly. For their sake, I hope you mean it. As the triplets ran up to them, Jason knelt down, his heart pounding as he introduced himself to the children who would change his life forever. The days following the wedding were some of the most humbling of Jason's life. He began by reaching out to Mia, respecting her boundaries but determined to be involved. At first, the triplets, Liam, Sophia, and Noah, were cautious around him, unsure of this new presence in their lives. Jason didn't push them. Instead, he focused on small gestures, like showing up at their school events, helping Mia with errands, and listening to their stories with genuine interest. Mia remained guarded but cooperative, making it clear that her priority was the children. She watched Jason's efforts from a distance, wary of his history but willing to give him a chance. Slowly, she saw changes in him. The once distracted and career-driven man now seemed more present, more open. For Jason, it was a learning curve. He realized that being a father wasn't about grand gestures but about showing up, day after day. It wasn't easy. There were moments of frustration, awkwardness, and doubt. But with each passing day, he felt a deeper connection to the children he had once unknowingly abandoned. Jason's mornings began with packing lunches and helping with breakfast, a stark contrast to his previous life of boardrooms and luxury events. He quickly learned that Liam loved soccer, Sophia was obsessed with painting, and Noah could spend hours building elaborate structures out of Legos. These discoveries became the foundation of their growing bond. The triplets, initially hesitant, began to warm up to him. They asked him to read bedtime stories, joined him on weekend outings, and shared their little victories, from school tests to soccer goals. Jason's once polished exterior softened as he embraced the messy, chaotic joys of parenthood. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Jason had to navigate the inevitable challenges: tantrums, scraped knees, and sibling squabbles. He also had to reconcile with his own shortcomings, apologizing to Mia on more than one occasion for his past mistakes. "I'm sorry for not being there when you needed me most," he told her one evening, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life making it right." Mia, though hesitant to fully trust him, began to see a genuine change in Jason. His actions spoke louder than his words, and for the first time, she allowed herself to believe that he was serious about being part of their lives. Months turned into years, and Jason's life transformed in ways he never expected. He stepped back from his business, delegating responsibilities to his trusted team so he could prioritize his family. The once invincible entrepreneur now found joy in the small things: attending Liam's soccer games, helping Sophia mix paints for her latest masterpiece, and building entire Lego cities with Noah. Mia, too, found herself softening toward Jason. While their romantic relationship had ended long ago, their shared love for the triplets created a new bond between them. They became partners in parenting, learning to work together for the sake of their children. One sunny afternoon, the family gathered at a local park for a picnic. Jason watched as the triplets ran through the grass, their laughter echoing in the warm breeze. Mia sat beside him, a content smile on her face. "You've come a long way," Mia said, breaking the comfortable silence. "So have you," Jason replied, his gaze never leaving the children. "I never thought I'd find this sense of purpose." Mia nodded. "They changed everything, didn't they?" "They did," Jason agreed. "And so did you." As the triplets raced back to them, clamoring for attention, Jason felt a surge of gratitude. His life was far from perfect, but for the first time it felt complete. He had learned that true success wasn't measured in wealth or status, but in the love and connections that anchored him to the people who mattered most. The family sat together, sharing stories, laughter, and a newfound sense of unity. Despite the fractured past and the challenges they had faced, they had found their way back to each other. In the end, they proved that even the most broken beginnings could lead to a brighter, stronger future.